So Carlos and Rita and Susan will continue to study us, our MichaelNet mass, as we kind of mobilize through time here. And Carlos brought up a point that I want to remind you. This is the first of a triennial conference series, and we're hoping that many of you return so they can keep track on how we actually end up collaborating over time. And one of the goals is in the last, for our last meeting, is to have federal funders here, the ones that can release money, tell us what they will fund. So 24 months from now, I was talking to several people about that's what we want is a panel of experts, or a panel of funders saying, based on your behavior and based on what you tell us the needs are, this is what we will fund. So that's the goal, to be there, and they will continue to study us between now and then. So you'll be studying. I want to turn this over now to Jonathan, who is in the middle of the crossfire helping us talk to each other. So without further ado. Oh, yeah, sure.
Thank you. Thanks, and I'm here to talk about preparation X to eliminate the X chromosome. No, I'm sorry. That was, by the way, in my opinion, the single best presentation I've ever seen. So for those of you who missed dinner, you know who you are. You missed an absolutely spectacular show. Anyway, so what I want to talk about or engage in a conversation about really is this project that I'm the PI on called microBEnet, which is the microbiology of the built environment network. And what I'm going to do is give you a little introduction to it, and what I really want from this introduction and from this interaction is we really need both feedback in terms of what is useful to do for all of you, and you'll see what our sort of scope is, but also interaction. We need participation in some of the things that we're trying to do with microBEnet. So first, who is microBEnet? So a few with David Coyle, who is, so microBEnet is done via UC Davis and the Building Ecology Research Group. David Coyle from UC Davis is there in the back. He's a postdoc working on some of the project, and Hal Levin from Building Ecology Research Group, who many of you know, who's right over there. And there are multiple other people involved at each of the places, but that's the two people who are here. So before I tell you what we're trying to do with microBEnet, I thought it would be useful to tell you what our targets are. So we have sort of 3 targets in our activities. And these overlap with each other quite a bit, but these sort of 3 areas we're trying to cover, which is people funded by the Sloan Foundation program, that is the people that are here, and anybody else funded by the Sloan Foundation program, is tier 1, what we call it. Anybody in related fields, or people already working on microbiology, the built environment, or urbaneering, or whatever we're going to end up calling it. Anybody who is potentially interested in actually working on it. So people who are building scientists, or architects, or microbial ecologists, who aren't currently doing things, who we want to convince to switch what they're doing into an area like this. And then what the Sloan Foundation generously calls stakeholders, which is sort of the people who influence things like policy decisions and funding decisions. And we include the broad public in here, although Sloan may be less, more concerned with people like, you know, the NIH program officers who are involved in deciding what the next funding projects are going to be. So we have these sort of 3 tiers, and you know, tier 1, the first focus of our group is the people that are here. So what are we doing? This is an experiment. I'm not aware of any project like this funded in terms of a new field, new area of work. So we're inventing it as we go along, and we really want feedback in terms of what we're doing. I'm going to just go back to our logo here, because what we think we're doing is trying to connect, communicate, collaborate, and curate information, people, projects, etc., related to this field. So we're trying to connect people together. We're trying to foster communication and collaboration. And we're trying to take some of the information that is out there and curate it in a way, and we heard a really nice discussion of what curation means yesterday, curate it in a way to make it useful to sort of both parties, the producers and the consumers of information. And so related to those activities, related to those concepts, we have maybe 5 major activities, although we could parse this out into maybe 10 different things. We have a website, which is really just the portal for either information or telling people about what we're doing. And that's microBEnet. Should not be hard to remember. The BE part, of course, doesn't get capitalized in the domain name, but we like to think the BE is an important part of the name there. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Sort of our main funded activity, actually, in terms of the amount of money that we've gotten from Sloan, is to organize meetings and workshops. And I'll tell you a little bit about some of the ones that we've organized, and we want ideas for future meetings and workshops that might be useful for creating and encouraging collaboration and communication, new areas that need a small workshop. Instead of having to go through a grant funding process via Paula, you can come to us, and we have a budget every year that we can spend on travel and arranging such meetings. I mean, it's not an enormous budget, but it's enough to have a very rapid response to organizing a small workshop or meeting on some topic. We're also trying to create and curate resources that we or other people have identified are useful to this growing field and collaboration across different areas. You could say that we're social media mavens of some type. We believe that social media is very useful in aiding these goals of ours, the collaboration and communication. There's a lot of power in the crowd, as well as power in the tools that people use to engage in social media. And though many people may use those social media tools for non-work related things, we think there's an enormous amount of power in Twitter and Facebook and Google Plus and blogs and et cetera in helping communicate among all of the people in this arena and outside of the area. And then the last thing I want to talk about, and I'll get to examples of each of these, is we really want to get people to do a lot of these things themselves. So one of our goals is to teach people how to do some of the things that we think are important, like engage in social media or curate resources or et cetera. So just to give you a little information, I'm not going to give you an overview of everything we're doing because I really want to have some feedback. So we've organized some workshops at meetings. So within a meeting, we've sponsored, organized, or paid for, or participated in a variety of gatherings that relate to microbiology of the built environment. We did a session, or a couple sessions at the Indoor Air meeting in Austin. We co-sponsored a little session at the AAAS meeting in February. We organized a workshop on citizen microbiology that I'm happy to talk to people about, that a few of the people here were at that workshop. We co-sponsored a session at this genomic standards meeting, and we've got sessions for upcoming meetings too. Healthy Buildings 2012, which is in August, right, in Brisbane? July in Brisbane. Lake Arrowhead Small Genomes meeting, which is in September, and a few other ones coming up. So, but we're really interested in other ideas you have of things that are not happening. So, you know, there are meetings that are happening. We don't really want to just put a little money into sponsoring a meeting that was going to happen anyway. We want to do new stuff. We want to help people. If you think we need to get together the 7 people who work on particulate, filtering via, airplanes or something to that effect, we're open to any of such ideas. So please come to us and give us ideas about needs for the community for moving this field forward that you might need help in, say, paying for travel for some people, et cetera. We have some funding to do that. And please stop me anywhere along the way if you have questions about any of this. We've been trying to build up some resources that we think should be useful to the community, and again, we're open to any other things. There was a lot of discussion yesterday of tutorials and de-jargonifiers. So we actually just talked about this last week, and Hal Levin raised this, and we've been starting to work on ideas for a glossary of terms that we would like to have at the site. We've been building what we call these sort of simple fool's guides, although I think that's trademarked, so we just use simple guides, to various areas. So we've written one on ribosomal RNA surveys, we've written one on building ecology, we've written one on what is DNA and RNA, and sort of just for trying to bring in people, say, from building science who might not know the details of the molecular biology behind some of the molecular surveys. You can go there and get a little tutorial on a variety of subjects. And we'd love to have ideas for more things. We can work with people to write them. We have an editor who's helping edit some of this stuff. We'd like to enhance it with our glossary once we have a glossary, so it's connected all to the glossary. Most of these things are going to be posted at the website, so you can go look there. There are a few resources that we've been developing or thinking about developing elsewhere. For example, it probably would be beneficial to start making and editing Wikipedia entries, which we probably are going to start to do because that is the source of all information for everybody on the planet. For better or worse, I actually think it's mostly for better. And that's where people go, and that's what comes up in the top Google searches for any topic, and if we're not engaging in that, we're missing out on an enormous community of people that we can reach out to. Another resource that we think is really important is resources related to the literature. So we've been trying to collect publications that relate to studies of microbiology, the built environment, in some way, curate them, and make them available to everybody and try and engage people in this sort of literature. And so we've created a few collections. The one that seems to have taken off most is one with a system called Mendeley, which is an online open EndNote library and social network. So we have instructions on how to engage with Mendeley. David's made some videos that are now posted on YouTube on how to use Mendeley and how to use the desktop version or the web version of Mendeley. And what Mendeley is basically, you can consider it like Facebook. It's a social network, so people get an account. And then you can post papers, citations, to Mendeley. And you now have your collection, and they have a nice feature which is groups. So we've created a group for microbiology, the built environment. We have some 500 papers in this group. We've been curating those papers with tags corresponding to, you could consider this sort of metadata type curation corresponding to what type of organism is studied, what type of approach was used, what is the building environment that was studied, etc. So hopefully people can use that. We would love to have more people adding to this collection. And participating in it. It's a very useful tool. We use it in a lot of my collaborative research projects, some which involve hundreds of people, and it's great because if anybody finds a paper of interest, they post it to Mendeley, it's instantly available to everybody. And it's just a very useful way to stay on top of the literature and to share what you're interested in. Many of these things come and go. We think Mendeley is probably around to stay for a little while, but if it isn't, we will boot up a alternative reference collection, and most of these you can export to EndNote or SiteUlike or other reference collections. We pull in a feed from the Mendeley collection to the microBEnet website, so it posts what the latest papers anybody has added to the collection are just there through a feed on the microBEnet website. So if you don't want to go to Mendeley, you can just track it that way. But we would love to have anybody out here, if you have an EndNote library that is of interest and has lots of things that we are missing from our collection, we would love to add them to this collection. We have a page dedicated to the Sloan Program. It's easier for us to boot up a page than it is for the Sloan Foundation to boot up a page. And I think this is useful because we actually get a lot of hits to this page from people from the outside seeing what the projects are. We have links to project websites if we've been able to find them. We could still use a few more, or if you have them and we don't have them linked there, but it's a good portal for people to find out information about the program. We've sent a lot of reporters to this site, for example, who are interested in finding people to talk to when there's a paper or some other story about microbiology, the built environment. And again, we've heard some things yesterday about resources that would be useful for facilitating collaboration and communication. We'd love ideas on this. We have bandwidth to help produce them, as well as if you have something that exists out there, we have the ability to curate something and either bring it in or bring links in from external sites. So we've made, for example, a YouTube playlist of YouTube presentations that seem to be useful in terms of introductory background to things related to microbiology, the built environment. We don't bring in those videos, but we have that collection. So anything that you flag when you're working on collaborations in particular, or working on anything related to the project that you think would be useful to share with a broader audience, we are happy to work with you to both host that and to try and figure out ways to make it de-jargonified or more broadly useful to people. So we have this social media aspect, which I am somewhat obsessed with, you could say. I really think there's enormous power in social media in science. And I live and breathe to test the various social media platforms because I view them just as like a microscope or any other tool. They're just computer programs and they have potential to be useful for science. I think some of them are more useful than others, as with any other tool, but all of them have their potential, and we'd like to engage the community, and they're very useful for bringing together people. Twitter is a very powerful tool for rapid communication about various things. Some people may know, but there are a lot of people posting to Twitter about this meeting. There are thousands of people outside this meeting who are hearing about microbiology, the built environment, by following Twitter. So we'd love to get more people engaged in social media because we think it can help with collaboration, communication, outreach, visibility, etc. We're happy to work with people to demystify. How do I know what?
How do you know there's thousands of people following Twitter right now?
Because I get code responses from them. So
is there a counter on it or something?
Well, I mean, well, first of all, I've gotten responses from dozens and hundreds of people from the posts already. I have 10,000 followers, so it's not, so I have a big right. So I have a big trumpet, which is very powerful in some sense. But there are a lot of people who can't travel to meetings or can't travel often to meetings, who use Twitter as a way to find out what's going on in the field. There's reasons why people, I mean, Twitter has its issues, but there are reasons why people were nominating Twitter for a Nobel Peace Prize, because the communication that it allowed among people in Egypt or in other places is very powerful. And the same thing can be used for scientific communication. And I think, so we would love, for example, we can be your trumpet. If you have a new paper, tell us. We will help advertise it. We will write a blog post about it. We will communicate it to people. We would love to interview you about your paper to get the story behind the paper out. People are interested, scientists in other fields or scientists in related fields, they're overwhelmed. Everyone is overwhelmed. How are you going to find out about the 20,000 papers that are published every year? You're just not. So social media is a really good way that people use to filter what is coming out in meetings and in conference publications and in new research areas, new tools, and new papers. And we can help get people to see the things that you are doing. So we really want to do that. We think that it is a very powerful way to spread the word about the cool stuff that everybody is doing here. And it does, it helps us too, because when we interact with people who have published a new paper, we have to learn what they did. We have to understand their jargon. We have to communicate that and demystify that in a way. And so I think that this is very useful. And our project, it's an experiment, but our project is in essence, one of the big components is we are here to help you collaborate, communicate, curate, and share in other ways. And social media is one way to do that. And I think a very, very powerful way to do that. We have a blog. You should all be reading our blog. It's brilliant. We write about papers that we know about in the field. We write about meetings that are coming up. We publish meeting reports from meetings like this. We, complain about things that we don't like, and the, bacteria are bad everywhere. But we'd love to engage more people. If anybody in any of your groups is interested in writing blog posts, we would love to have them do guest posts. They can get an account. They can post to the blog directly. It's very easy to do. If you have blogs in your lab, we've pulled in feeds from the BioBE Center, which has a blog, from a few other sites related to this that have blogs. They're fed into our site so people can see everything going on related to the area. If you have any such things, we would love to also pull those in to present them to other people. Facebook is only worth $50 billion now, but nevertheless, there's a reason that people think Twitter and Facebook and Google, etc., are worth a lot of money. Lots of people live online and communicate that way, and we really think that we need to do a better job in this field of engaging in that environment. There are, different flavors of social media groups out there, from Twitter, which is basically like text messaging to the public, to Facebook, which is like your friends text messaging to each other and sharing videos and things. And then there's LinkedIn, which is sort of the professionals network that doesn't get used very much. And then what I find is really interesting is a lot of sites that are really about something else. So Mendeley is about references, bibliography, but it is also a social media platform. You can have friends within Mendeley. You can build up groups within Mendeley. You can have interaction networks within Mendeley. SlideShare is a way for people to share their presentations, which we would love more people from here to do. But it's also a social network. You have friends within SlideShare. You can import your Facebook network into SlideShare and find other people there. I discover routinely interesting new presentations via those social network tools. So I think, and again, we're happy to work one-on-one with people, to write up tutorials on all these things. All of these things have potential uses in terms of scientific communication. I'm just going to skip over that. So the last thing I want to talk about is this issue of how to share, and I assume everybody knows this quote, but I'm just going to read it anyway. Give a man a fish and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish and you feed him for a lifetime, or woman. I think I'm biased against the X chromosome because of the presentation. And I think this same thing applies to teaching people how to share information. So, if we work with you to share information about your paper and post it to a blog, share something for someone and we help them for a day. But if we teach you how to do it, we help you and everyone for a lifetime. So what we really want to happen is for everyone here to realize how easy it is to do this. I mean, posting something to our blog or Google Plus or Twitter is barely more work than sending an email. And once you do that, instead of sending an email saying I have this new paper to 500 people, you can write one message and post it, and everybody has access to what you wanted to share. And it's literally trivial to set up accounts like this and free, because there are many commercial providers provide sites for doing this for free, and it can give you a site to share everything you're doing that you want to make public. This is not saying you should share everything that you want to keep private. I'm not arguing when you should put something out there. But once you want to put something out there, you should figure out how to use some of these tools, because they're very powerful. They keep a record of everything you're doing. Program officers check them out all the time, including other program officers. And I think that it's just very easy to layer this upon some of the stuff you're already doing. If you have a website with your publications, it's easy to add a blog where you write a post about each new publication when it comes out. And that gives people a little bit of the sort of social perspective instead of a static web presentation. So we have videos. We're trying to teach people how to do this on the site. We have videos about how to use Mendeley, and we're working on other presentations. And I think I'll just leave this here. We really want to engage with everybody as part of the Sloan program to figure out what their bottlenecks are in terms of collaboration, communication, sharing, getting information out there, and try and work with you to figure out if we can help. And I think many of the people are going to experience the same things. That is, there's going to be a bottleneck with, accessing the literature, or there's going to be a bottleneck with, computational tools, as we saw yesterday, or metadata, or finding out what's going on in conferences, or whatever it is. We think there's going to be repetition there, and so learning from a couple of groups will probably benefit everybody. So it's an experiment. We're learning as we go. But we really want to engage with you here and help you spread the word of what you're doing and help you find out about what other people are doing and then facilitate collaborations and communications. Thanks.